Hello and welcome to Shiny Setup with...
I hope it's me, Dave.
It could be Dave, or it could be your clone. And Mackie, I could be my clone too. On WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. That's right, where it's more than just radio. So jump in the chat room if you can. This is show number 409?
10.
8. 10! 10 and 400. Whoa, what? That's not normal. We're going to talk about the hypothesis. We're going to wrap it up for you. We're going to wrap it up. It's on air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop and digital radio. If you missed Lars' show, which I did, shame on you. bad people. You can catch her in the archives. That's right. For a measly $5 a month, you can get access to the Freedom Slips archives and check out her shows, our shows, all of the hosts' show on there. It's awesome. It's brilliant.
Guess who she had
it's
on
a coffee and I guess a person.
Yes, correct. It was Nancy Hopkins, and they were discussing Shungite.
Nice.
Awesome
just
show.
to let you know, Solaris also has published a new book. That's right. You go and find that yourselves, my friends. But she has published a new book. I will get my hands on it. Post haste, Solaris. Keep up the good work. Awesome. So you need to catch her show if you don't, or you haven't yet, or if you can't, or if, somehow maybe the time is not right for you. It means it's a bad time. Anyway, if you're in the States, this is a bad time. This is, when the vampires go to sleep. But it's really important that you catch it in the archives if you can, or even live. She's awesome. Her guests are always great. I find it fascinating stuff. And it usually goes just all over the place to discussing things and coming up with interesting points of view. So $5, come on. It's a monthly subscription. It's pretty cool. And in the same vein, do remember that this is listener-funded radio. Okay, so we all, not we, Dave and I don't get paid for anything, but the station is funded through your donations. And if you can afford it, please do donate what you can. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. In my area, that is the Rug people. And for Dave?
It's the Dark and Jung.
Correct. It is not a gimmick. These people here, they've been here for several tens of thousands of years. Before us, before the white people came along and declared, we have discovered Australia. No, you're mistaken, sir. I've been here for 80,000 years. Silence you. I will show you. I will surely call.
Do you think that was the first use of the shut up clause
maybe
from the debunkers? Shut up.
Swiftly followed by the pestilence blankets. That's what happens here. It is a thing.
More smallpox blankets over here, please.
What? Come on, they're not sick enough yet. It's something we should acknowledge, because in the West we are singularly handicapped by our history and the way we're taught our history. It's unfortunately non-inclusive. History happened before the advent of Europe. Believe it or not, stuff happened. Things happened. And in fact, if Constantinople had not been conquered by the Turks in 1476, I want to say, then we would not have anything in Europe, because all the scholars, fled to the west, from the east to the west, and brought with them a knowledge occasioning, jump-starting, if you will, what we now like to call the Renaissance, the rebirth. Because we were smack bang in the middle of the Dark Ages for 1,000 years after the fall of the West Roman Empire. So, yes, we should really expand our scope here. We have to understand that history is a lot bigger than what Europeans think it is. So people, the funny thing is this, Dave, we went to the Gosford Glyphs, we've seen this and that. I heard about Chinese trading ships found up and down the coast. And there's this big, bone of contention around it. Why is my question? Why is this such a...
It doesn't fit the current timeline, Mickey. You know the story.
Well,
my tenure, my grant. If I expose that and agree with you, I'll lose my funding. I can't do that.
Well, you're
says
fired.
The head of the Smithsonian.
Off you go. Yeah, that's right. The thing is, this common sense, though, is a beautiful thing. And Occam's razor, and in this case, I'm actually all in favor of Occam's razor.
Don't say you choose it when it fits.
Oh, absolutely. whenever it suits me. Because the thing is, Occam's razor says the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. And I have no issue with that. I mean, Occam's razor as a thing in and of itself, it works beautifully well, right? The problem occurs or starts to occur when people decide what the simplest explanation is.
Yes.
Right? The very statement that Occam's razor makes is perfectly correct. I mean, I got no issue with that at all. Now, in this case, we know that Islam made it all the way to Indonesia. It's not the most populous Muslim nation on the planet. It's nowhere near Saudi Arabia or Mecca or any of those places, right? So people had to travel by land or sea to get to Indonesia. Indonesia is a hop, skip, and jump to Australia. China, in relative terms, from a European perspective, is a hop, skip, and a jump to Australia. It would be insane if we thought that other peoples did not navigate the oceans and trade across the oceans, even use land bridges if and when they were available. So I'm sorry, I've no time for people that keep denying the most obvious things in this world. Having said all of that, nice intro there. This is show number 410, and a few more shows, and we will have been on the air for 9 years. We will be in our 9th year very, very soon. That's a long time. And now, so far, no lucrative $1 million contract with any commercial station.
Come on, it's a 10-year overnight success, Mackie.
It's what it is. I'm waiting another couple of years, then I'm out of here. No, I'm just kidding. But look, it is what it is, right? And the funny thing is this: this has been a big news week, and it's been a news week that has seen the news develop rapidly. It's not just news, though, right? I mean, in this particular instance, if something happens somewhere, then you go, oh, okay, that's news. It happened to someone else. It's interesting to hear about it. Okay, cool. I hear it. In Australia, of course, the bushfires affected us immediately, affected myself and Dave in a very personal way, both directly and through friends and family. And it becomes real. For our listeners overseas, of course, it's just a piece of news, and that's all good. The piece of news, though, that affects everybody on the planet because of the nature of the beast is the coronavirus outbreak in Wuhan, in the Hubei province of China. There are now some 61 million people under quarantine. Just to give you an idea what that means, Turkey has 60 million people. West Germany, before the reunification, had 60 million people. So we're talking about quarantining a country here. Okay, that's what it is. In fact, in more realistic terms for Australians here, we have 26 million people in Australia. So we've just quarantined 2.5 times our population. Okay, imagine all of Australia just shutting down. All of Australia 2.5 times over shutting down.
That's right.
That's what it is. Okay, now in America, probably pretty much the entire East Coast would be shut down, if you want to put it in those terms. Now, it is a story that's rapidly developing. Dave has got a lot of things to add here as well. I just want to say a few things. I don't know if you noticed this, but it developed very, very, very quickly. I was posting on Facebook when Wuhan was quarantined. By the time I posted it, 2 other cities had been quarantined. By the time I posted that, another 8 cities had been quarantined. This is moving apace. It's moving fast. And not only that, the rate of infection is fairly swift. The death toll is not horrendous. I mean, it's a tragedy, but so far I think 40-50 people have perished. But it is not a significant percentage of the people that became infected. Obviously, we can't take this lightly, and we don't know if this thing is going to mutate or not. But it is highly infectious. I haven't heard anything about the incubation period. I'm sure Dave is going to add something there. That's something that worries me. I heard a couple of things that did worry me though. One was that you can be infectious without showing symptoms. That's not the normal state of affairs, but apparently with the coronavirus, you can be infectious without showing symptoms. The other thing is that it's a species, a jumped species. This virus maybe from bats. So I saw a story where...
I've got something on this too.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Where in the Wuhan market you can buy all kinds of livestock, for consumption. And apparently, bat soup. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I hear that is one thing. One thing that really worried me is there's two things. One was a friend of mine who is from Hong Kong told me via WhatsApp to not underestimate this. Do not underestimate this. This is serious stuff, right? And secondly, is the information that we have been getting, and I'm going to put it through my Mackie filter.
Mm-hmm.
If people say, if the government says, 1,500 people are infected, I want to say it's probably 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And if 45 people have died, I want to say maybe 300 or 400 have died. They are now building a second hospital. It'll take them 10 days to build. The vaccine is 4 months away, 16 weeks in Australia. Australians, the CSIRO was developing it.
Already working.
They're already working on micro-clamping. A new technique is being used, rapid response technique, but it will still take 16 weeks for the vaccine to hit.
But the vaccine is only good if you haven't got it yet.
Well, obviously.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right?
And
it's any
16 weeks,
consolation.
yeah, but see, the way... So this started happening Wednesday, Thursday last week, really, right? But then it just took off. And all of a sudden, you know what the one thing is, Dave? It is unprecedented. So many things are unprecedented recently. So many cities have been quarantined and locked down. This has never happened. We've never done this. Even for Ebola in East Africa.
No, that's right.
Sorry, West Africa didn't do it. Not East and West Africa. They didn't even do it for that. But now we've got cities shut down. But look, I'm sure you've got a few things to add here, my friend. It's quite a serious issue.
So, thanks for the intro on this, Mackie, because it's something truly chronic. On the YouTube of this later on, you'll be able to see some screen capture stuff that I've got working. I've got back to tech again, Mackie, believe it or not. All right, so in Australia, there's 4 confirmed cases. We know that there's 3 in New South Wales. We're in the state that Mackie and I live in, and the state below us is 1 person, totaling 4. But there is still another 5 being tested who have exactly the same symptoms, but they're waiting for those results to come back from the lab to confirm that yes, it is, or no, it isn't. So those 3 people who in New South Wales, the 3 of the 4, 3 of them in our state, there is a person. Now I've actually got some details on them. So there was a 35-year-old, there is a 43-year-old, and a 53-year-old. Now, the person who was 35, all 3 of them flew in from Wuhan. However, the 35-year-old, flew in on the 6th of January. On the 6th. So knowing that it's 20 days ago in our time. 20 days. And they're talking about this maybe possibly having, because they don't know, a gestation period, because the details coming out of China are very, very sparse. There's not a lot of detail coming out. So, and the accuracy in which of that detail is also in question. And with Mackie's filter and my filter together, how much of that do we truly trust? In a similar fashion, maybe to Fukushima, where, oh, there's no problem, but we filmed your nuclear reactor going south on you. Well, that was one of them. Well, all 3 of them we've filmed. Well, not really, no, we only lost 1. Actually, no, you're right. Weeks later, we lost 2 of them. What about the 3rd one that you haven't mentioned? Oh, yeah, only since you're pressing us, we lost that one as well. They weren't forthright in coming out and giving everybody the real state of the situation. Mackie's right. So far, 11 cities in China are shut down. Now, the question is it 33 million? Is it 55 million? I've been reading around some of the estimations of the city names, and I got to around about 55 million. Now, 55 million sounds worse than 33 million. So that's the way I believe our media is running this story. Oh, there's only, some cities have been shut down. Some, right. So here's a story I found. Wuhan, China, at least 11 other cities have been quarantined as China attempts to halt the spread of the coronavirus. That's about 33 million people on lockdown. So it's 11 other plus Wuhan. That's 12 cities that are in lockdown. And what does lockdown mean? They've got people with FLIR detectors that can, examine your temperature. And if you've got a temperature, you're getting quarantined. But since you can carry this for at least 20 days, according to the information we've had, 20 days, Meki, 20 days of travels, 20 days of contacting people. And do you know why it is contagious before you present? Because it lives in your lungs. The virus living in one's lungs, I've actually got a picture of it. Hang on. Here. So the symptoms are headaches, sneezing, cough, shortness of breath, and breathing difficulties, and that's because it presents like pneumonia, and your lungs fill up with a fluid and you lose the ability to oxygenate your blood. It also leads to kidney failure, and you have a fever as well. So the first thing, because it lives inside your lungs, in the wet area, the warm wet area, that when you cough or sneeze, you're atomizing it, and someone only has to breathe it in, and now they have it because it'll attach to the moist, wet, sticky areas that are nice and warm inside your body. And so you only start to present when your body's overrun with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean before you're overrun that you're not contagious. So that's a similar thing with all of these respiratory, severe acute respiratory syndrome. But Meki, one thing that I found was this snake rumor. That it somehow came from a snake in a market. But there's not any agreement from all the scientists that that's even possible.
It'd be the first time that a reptilian virus would have come and jumped the species barrier. Normally, right. we only catch mammalian viruses. So that is a mammal. Sorry, I lied to you. No, it's not true. We do catch bird flu.
We do, because birds are reptilian. So that's right.
Well, we have origins. Many moons ago. So, but I've never heard of a reptilian virus jumping. So
there's no consensus yet from the scientific community of the origin. However, simply Googling, and I'm going to give you a number to Google. All right? So if you Google this, US 101 307 01 B2. If you Google that code, and I'm going to paste it into the chat room so everyone can see what I'm talking about. And this is a patent. The present invention provides a live attenuated coronavirus comprising a variant replicase gene encoding polyproteins comprising a mutation in one or more of non-structural proteins. Blah, 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 blah. That goes on. And that was as far back as 2015 when the application was filed by PIR Bright Institute. They filed a patent on it. And it expires in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time.
Oh.
Now, there is an argument and a rumor. So they're the facts we've got. So the rumors are, as Meki has already intimated here, that we're thinking it's more like 100,000 people. There's been some leaks coming out via VPN from China on disposable phones attempting to get out of China. Some information that is not truly announced within, but known within from the medical community, apparently. And they're talking more like 100,000 people have been infected. And that this is absolutely widespread now. They've had to lock down the cities to try and isolate it even further. But yet, if you can travel within a city, you're probably already gone. And this is only rumors. These are rumors, and it is truly. This is the pandemic that I think everyone has been waiting for since the Spanish flu. All right, so one of these things that we're talking about here, and I've got a map of the current spread of the virus, and you can see the US and Canada, the US only, France, Nepal, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and Australia have all got registered people having contracted the virus on their soil. Wow. So with a 20-day gap of transmission between that and presenting, we don't know how far this has spread. I don't want to be all alarmist. I'm not trying to be alarmist. I'm just saying, we
know that
what a concept.
Yeah, but it's spread into every province in China. We know this. We know it's spread across overseas. It's in Europe. It's in India. India worries me a lot. It's in the United States. That doesn't worry me too much. But since it's gone into India, because India is pretty chaotic. No offense to anyone, but it is, right?
There's a lot
trying
of
to organize
quarters contact with people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just. I think it would be completely impossible to lock India down. I don't think it's possible. I don't think you can lock a city in India. It just can't be locked down. It just won't happen. To Dave's point, though, as well. I mean, this is not a horrific disease. Yes, it is deadly, but if you look at the statistics,
fatality versus infection is low.
Correct. It's very low. It's lower than the common flu, in fact. But it is a new thing. We haven't got a vaccine against, so people can get sick, and we don't know if it's going to change, and we don't know if the mortality rate is going to increase or not. We just don't know that, right? But it is very, very serious. It's a very serious situation. And the other things as well. The thing is this, though. If I wanted to attack China, right, or look, any country for the matter, if you cast your mind back to the movie, what was it called? It's that movie with Will Smith where the aliens attack.
Independence Day.
There you go. Right? And well, I should have thought of it because the aliens attacked on Independence Day, the 4th of July, when the vast majority of the military was away on leave. That's when they struck. Because they knew us. Now, shutting down Wuhan was likened by some reporters to shutting down London, which is of a similar size, on Christmas Eve. Because obviously we got Chinese New Year. This is the Chinese New Year weekend, and shutting down the city would have just been catastrophic. Because the Chinese expect tens of millions of people to travel. This is the time when you go to your family. A lot of people working overseas or in other cities. So this is the time when the Chinese travel.
Chinese New Year, they travel everywhere.
Yeah, correct. This is the perfect time. If this were something other than like a coincidental outbreak, this would be the time that you would do it. And because it is the time that you would do it, I'm a little suspicious. It's just me spitballing here. I'm not saying it's this or it's that. But if I were to, have some kind of preemptive strike or try to do something, that, would hurt China, this is the time when you would do it.
And this is warfare.
And I'm not saying that's what happened. Okay, I'm not saying that. But it's funny, Dave. We had fire, flood, pestilence.
That's right.
Next thing. We've got
the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Well, it's the three at least.
That's three so far. Yeah, that's right.
We'll follow soon, I'm sure. But yeah, it's
the last point I wanted to make, and I've got the news story from the Washington Times. Virus hit Wuhan, has 2 laboratories linked to Chinese bio-warfare program. Virology Institute there has China's only secure lab for studying deadly viruses. It's actually in Wuhan. Now, remember how I said rumor? Okay, so the rumor is that it leaked, or leaked somehow, or there was, because this is all rumor, not conspiracy, it's only a rumor until it's proven otherwise, that this was intentionally let go. Remember how there was all these problems with the viral labs, and there was someone who had a flask of something that was misnamed, and they were not supposed to mix it with anything else, but they did by mistake, and then it got out. Do you remember that there was the also the foot and mouth disease thing that was never supposed to have escaped, and it was genetically printed to that lab? Well, is this one of those? I wonder if that's how we're supposed to look at this.
Look, it's possible. If that were the case, though, and I'll be very, you have to be factual with these things and analytical. If a virus that the Chinese are studying had escaped, it had before Marburg, Ebola, it's all happened. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Then they would have vaccines. There's no way the Chinese would ever experiment on something. In fact, nobody, not the Russians, not the Americans, nobody. Except maybe the Tasmanians. Just kidding.
you know that they have the Black Plague, right? They have both versions of the plague, and
they would have, but they would have vaccines. The vaccine would be available just so in case something like this were to happen.
Right?
Well, it's actually one of the protocols that you have to have these vaccines. But be that as it may, right? It is certainly a cautionary tale because see, the one thing, Dave, that I find most troubling here is not so much the disease itself, or what it does, but the speed with which it spread. It's the speed with which the story developed. It was almost two stories come to mind. There's, of course, obviously, one is 9/11. That just overnight it was just a thing, and all of a sudden the world is different. The next thing, next time I had this feeling was when the bushfires in Australia this year. It was just quick. It just turned into inferno, in the blink of an eye. And this story too, the coronavirus outbreak in China, was not just such a rapidly developing story with things happening so fast that it was like you post something and minutes later it was out of date.
That's
new
right.
things
That's
happen, right?
Yeah.
So this is, but like again, it's a question of this is the world we live in, rapid travel. I was in a conference in Malaysia at the beginning of the year, attended by a number of Chinese, and you just don't know. But I mean, we travel for work a lot. People do, and you could be stuck somewhere. Or you could carry something, or you could be infected unbeknownst to you. It's it's possible. This is the world we live in. I go through so many airports. It's not even funny, right? And you don't think about it, all the time because it would just paralyze you. But certainly this brings it home, and then we know that the disease has traveled across the world. It has traveled across the world. That's a fact. How we deal with the quarantining and isolation of the patients is a different story, but it has traveled. It has traveled rapidly.
Likewise, it had at least 3 weeks to be able to move around before people outside of China were aware that it was traveling into their countries. So that's the thing that has alarmed me certainly more than anything. So last week we talked about it. The week before we said, there's this thing going on, and that's it. But the week before that, it was happening, but no one knew about it. So that's how long that this has had to spread, and they're wondering now whether those people who were infected before they got to hospital, how much contact they had with people. They flew here, so they're saying just as a precautionary act that we're going to contact those people that shared the aircraft with them, just to make sure they're okay. Wow, because 6 hours in an aircraft, 7, 8, 9 hours in an aircraft with someone, it's shared oxygen. You don't get much new in there, and
no, and
that's just, it's like a little petri dish.
Yeah, correct.
So
that's 100%. No, look, you're right. That's 100% correct. Now, just the latest though, they're building a new hospital, as I said. So the capacity for Wuhan will be 2,500 beds in the city.
Wow.
They reckon they're going to be finished
filled up.
Oh, I think so. But they have now the latest. This is the latest. This news is an hour old. 56 people have been killed and 2,000 are infected. Now again,
is it up to 56 now?
Yeah, correct.
Wow.
Now this is still a small percentage, considering the number of infected. And we also have to realize, though, that another major item of news is developing, which is the impeachment trial of Trump.
Oh, here we go.
Which is just taking complete second stage to the coronavirus outbreak news. I have nothing to add there. It is what it is. We'll see how it develops. I don't think Trump will, in fact, be impeached because the Senate is being held by the Republicans. I don't think the Republicans are willing to give up their government quite yet. So I don't think he will be impeached, right?
Well,
and we have
it
cases.
takes both sides to agree.
No. You just have to hold the Senate majority.
A majority, right? But because they hold the majority anyway,
that is correct.
It's unlikely that they're going to have a majority vote.
So the Congress is held by the Democrats. That's why it got legs, right? Very simply. So Congress is held by the Democrats, but the Senate is held by Republicans. So I don't think, if the Senate was held by the Democrats as well, that would be a different story. Okay, then we could potentially see Trump impeached, but that is unlikely. Anything could possibly happen, but I doubt it. I find it highly dubious. 56 people have perished, but again, if you look at the percentages, it's less than 1% here of people that get infected perish, and apparently it's like the flu. It's people with pre-existing conditions and complications, so that's okay. There are a couple of pieces of news, Dave, though, that I found interesting. I want to share with you.
Please.
Do you remember Dr. Nick Riviera from The Simpsons?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Hi, everybody. So he said, he says, I can get here faster if I go in the 2-person lane. That's why I use corpses from the medical lab.
Right.
Okay, so listen to this. This is Arizona. And a driver in the U.S. has been caught trying to disguise a fake skeleton as a passenger so he could use a high occupancy vehicle lane, HOV. The Arizona Department of Public Safety said the 62-year-old was pulled over when an official noticed the skeleton, which is wearing a hat and tied to the passenger seat with a yellow rope. The driver was given a ticket. I can use the fast lane if I use the corpse from the medical department. Yes.
Oh,
so
it's Mr. McGregor.
My advice is not to use skeletons or corpses as passengers if you're going to use the high occupancy vehicle lane. Secondly, this is for me, my piece of news. I'm terribly happy that Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, has come back to reprise his seminal role as Jean-Luc Picard. Jean-Luc Picard is back, so Picard, Star Trek Picard has commenced officially.
I'm watching it tonight.
I love it. Good, yeah, I love it. Just because it's Star Trek, none of the manure that we've been given by recent attempts to turn I don't know. There was one called Enterprise. That was horrific with Scott Bakula. Just go and do Quantum Leap already. That's your speed. Quantum Leap away, but stay away from Star Trek.
I did like Quantum Leap.
Yeah,
from the 80s. Look, I'm looking forward to watching it tonight, and I think 7 of 9 is in there as well.
Not in the first episode, but yes.
Yeah, right. And Data obviously makes a return as well, and I'm looking forward to it. And one thing that shocked me was how much we've all aged. We've all aged since it was on last. You
might have. I'm exactly the same.
You're dynastical. I remember. That's right.
30 years ago, I look at myself in the mirror and I hold myself in a picture. It's just I don't see anything. There's no difference. I haven't. It's the same guy. If I was walking down the street and go, hey, it's you. Yeah, you haven't changed at all. That's right. That's not true at all. That's a lie. I'm lying to you. That is not the truth.
Monatomic gold man, you. That's right. Was it? What was that? Oh, what was the chemical? I forget what the chemical name was. So I've got one. The meme of the week. Meme of the week was a girlfriend and boyfriend meme where the girlfriend was tipping all of the Coronas out thinking she was doing the boyfriend a favor, and you can't get the coronavirus. It was hilarious.
Too soon.
Too soon. Yeah, it's still an active virus. Still an active virus. And while I've been, because you start researching into viruses, and I ended up, believe it or not, the segue's awful, but I ended up in British motoring license laws, and at least it saved me from the cat videos. I think the funny cat videos, but I ended up in this really weird thing, and I wanted Meki to hear, because we did a show on this very topic, not the licensing laws, but what it is that's a condition that can prevent you from maintaining a license to drive a motor vehicle in the UK, in England.
Yeah, that is a mind blower, everybody.
All right. So look, in every country, if you have a medical condition like myopathy, or you've got a cardio, or you have a breathing condition, or you have narcolepsy, or you have a registered condition, right? So if you have one of those, you need to tell whoever your licensing authority is that you've got it. You've got to mark it on a sheet, write it down, disclose it, so they can, at some point in the future, test you again to ensure that you're not worsened, or if you have a letter from your doctor to gives you some kind of clemency against, maybe wearing a seatbelt, or if you have a pacemaker, or all these kinds of things that you could have, right? But when I read through the list, Meki, I nearly fell off my chair. I did, when I came across Deja Vu. Deja Vu.
That's a serious condition.
Is clearly the thing that you don't want people to have while they're driving, because you pull up a set of lights and you see the white car and you go, oh, I've been here before. You get that funny feeling, deja vu. And you go, that car in front of me is going to hit that other red car. And then you watch it happen and you go, that's what happened. I just had deja vu. But if you told the authorities that you did, they can take your license away and prevent you from operating a motor vehicle. For some reason, deja vu is illegal. And you've got to be retested to prove that you can actually drive. What?
Okay, so here's my 10 cents, Dave. You got to be a grade A moron. If that's the law, right, and you're aware of it, you got to be grade A moron to say, oh, I know it's illegal, but Bob, I just had deja vu. Here's my license. I'm so sorry. No, that's just...
officer, I had deja vu. I saw this accident occur, and and then they go, well, sorry, you can't drive any longer. Why?
Sounds like terrorist activity. Yeah, that's what it is. Terrorists.
So when Meki and I did the show about deja vu, we discovered that there was a lot of research material and funding that went in by Big Pharma to have a look to see if they could induce it. And then when they discovered they could induce deja vu, they discovered how they could prevent it from happening. And yeah, that's a thing, apparently. It's a thing. So what they want to do is try to medicate you or something so you can't have it. And of course, that's probably something to do with the fluoride in the water that prevents us all from doing it and just behaving ourselves as good little citizens. Wow. What? I seriously nearly fell off the back of my chair. Fell upwards over the back of my executive high back.
Can we just send someone up to Dave's house? Independent thought alarm must be triggered 3 times. I don't think he can hear me, so just send someone now. Just now. Hey, Dave, yeah, dude, everything is just awesome. Just stay where you are. It's all good,
kids,
dude.
Who wants to start Daddy's car?
That's nice.
Because I mentioned Big Pharma in there. That's got to get us some points, right?
Not good. That doesn't help at all. But it's this funny thing. This is just looking at all these things and lifestyle choices, diseases, and yeah, Big Pharma. Big Pharma is a $1 trillion business. Make no mistake, it's massive. It's unbelievably big. And anybody who will screw with that is in deep water.
Yeah, and Mackie's describing me right now. That's what he's doing.
I'm just going to take a snap of Dave. I'm going to Twitter it.
The red pills stop you from screaming.
Man in trouble. Man in trouble. Hashtag man in trouble.
Man in trouble. Clearly delirious. That's what's going on.
It's a thing though, and we
It's not
have to understand it. Not clearly. But if you look at the state of the world, the state of politics, and you really aren't. I mean, if you open your eyes, that's all you have to do. Open your eyes. I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying, open your eyes, take a look for yourself. And I'm not saying it's this or it's that. I'm just telling you, look at what's happening. The people with money, okay, the interest groups, the industries, the elites, if you want to call them that, they are running the show. It's
but, Mackie,
what it is.
Aren't they getting poorer like the rest of us?
Clearly. Absolutely, that's what's happening. No, I can't afford my 52nd Ferrari for this week. I just can't do it. I can't do it. I have no more space in the garage. That's why I can't do it. It's
up and
it's
at them.
It apparently, now this was a statistic which came across this week. It was in reference to Africa. The top 20 richest people in the world, the top 20 richest people in the world, own more wealth than the 350 million women in Africa.
Yeah.
So 350 million women in Africa, the top 20 people in the world, the rich ones, own more than those. And then there's another one, the lady from, which country was it? African country.
Not Gina Reinhardt. That'll get us on another list.
She's been Australian. This was she was the daughter of the president of Angola. That's it.
Oh, not Mugabe. Not Mugabe.
No. Angola, and she was fortunate enough to be part and parcel, or to a lot of business deals, and she's now the richest woman in Africa. She's the single richest woman in Africa.
Wow.
And she said, "Oh no, I did my father's presidency for this, in this country for the last 20 years had nothing to do with it."
Sure.
All these opportunities just came about because I work really, really hard.
That's right.
And I have to. You don't know what to say to that blatant idiocy. You come across it and you hear it, and you go, "Yeah, that's the only thing." You just want to say, "Shut up." Do you understand how stupid you sound when you say that? I worked really hard. That's why I'm not the richest woman in Africa.
All right.
No.
So what about Clinton's daughter? Have you heard her speak?
Yeah.
Right. So, I draw some parallels there, Becky. I really do.
It's insane.
No
So
way.
people are... The gap is getting wider. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, which is bad for the economy. Because as the rich are getting richer and more wealth is concentrated up in the top echelons of our wealth, less money is in circulation. What do you mean, Mackie? Well, it doesn't make sense.
Vacuumed out.
Yeah. Well, essentially it is. So you've got, 20, 40, 50, 100, billionaires, whatever, 1,000, doesn't really matter. And they're all, getting richer and richer, and the middle class is shrinking, the poor are getting poorer, so there's less money for the poor. Nobody cares about it anyway. They're not spending that much, don't care. The middle class, though, is where the money is being spent. People, have good incomes, hopefully a house, maybe, a family and all that, and they spend the cash. And there's millions and millions and millions of them spending that money, keeping the economy going. So each time these people are given a hard time or losing income or losing their job or whatever it might be, the economy takes a hit, an impact. Mm-hmm. It's not felt by the top echelons, but the economy at large is hurting. So let me put it this way, right? Let's say another billionaire accumulates another $1 billion. Here it is in my bank account. That $1 billion now is no longer available in the economy. It's no longer in the pockets of some of the middle class people who, maybe 1 million people, $1,000 each, whatever. They would have spent it on something. But that $1 billion is no longer in circulation because the billionaire has now got that as part of his net wealth, maybe locked into assets or who knows what, right?
Well, they're not spending in the same fashion that 500,000 people would spend that $1,000.
Correct. It's just not just. I mean, even if you buy the most expensive car and live in the most expensive house, right? I mean, there's only just one of you.
That's right.
Not a million of you. So it's really bad for the economy, and we've seen this before in the past. In all the major corrections in the past, this has happened. In fact, just before the French Revolution, that's exactly what happened. The wealth was concentrated.
is that's
What?
exactly my viewpoint, Mackie, for the last 5 shows, I think, when we've been talking about this weird dichotomy, right? So we have some crazy few amount of people owning the greatest amount of wealth that's ever since we've made money, right?
Yep.
The fiat currency, and the most people on the bottom with the least amount.
Yep.
That's where we're living at the moment.
Yeah.
And if those people hadn't vacuumed it out of society, you know what? We might actually be thriving.
Yep.
So this division between, and Mecca, you had a long time ago, maybe a year ago, you had this a percentage of wealth gap between the CEOs and how they changed theirs rather than the frontline worker.
Yep.
Their increases, and it's now increased so significantly, the differential between the two, the frontline worker and the CEO.
You're right. I mean, ask yourself this, right? I mean, we're talking about the top companies here, like banks and resources company and oil companies, and you ask yourself, as the CEO of a company like that, do you really work 1,000 times harder than a person, doing a job in a company, or 10,000 times harder? And the answer is no. I mean, even when things go sideways, you still get a golden handshake. This Westpac thing. I mean, I'm not picking on Westpac. It's just
the
it's
big
fresh in
4
my
banks
mind.
over here all got in trouble. The most massive breaches, hundreds of millions of breaches in total.
Yeah, but and Westpac had the most, right? I mean, we're talking about money laundering charges.
53 million
like
laundering charges. Yeah.
If you're caught laundering money, Dave, you go to jail. That's what would happen to you. If the police came,
that would happen to me.
Money for
clearly, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Whereas now the CEO has resigned and the chairman of the board has resigned from Westpac. Oh yeah, but we can't really arrest them. Why not? They're culpable. It's their responsibility. The buck stops with them. Okay, that's why we have CEOs. That's why CEOs get paid so much, because it's a high risk proposition. If something goes sideways, it's you. You're responsible.
So, Mickey, I would only have to commit money laundering once, and I would go to jail.
Yeah.
But they did 50. I think it was 53 million separate times they did it.
Yeah, separate offenses.
No
separate money laundering offenses. And this is not $1 each time, or $1,000 or $10,000. We're talking significant amounts of money.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, and I'm just listening to it, and I'm driving along, because that's what I do. I listen to the news as I drive, and I'm thinking, okay, now there are two options here for me to deal with this. One, I've just entered a parallel universe, right, where all my preconceived ideas of law and justice are completely the opposite. Like, I'm in a bizarro world, right? Or the world I've just been inhabiting for the last 50 years has gone completely insane, and now I'm living inside the asylum and trying to find a way out of the asylum.
I think that's the latter.
And I think it's either. It doesn't matter which one it is, dude. Bizarro world or the asylum makes no difference to me.
Yes,
but the point is, how? I mean, it's very seriously, right? And for listenership, please, anybody who can answer this question for me, I'd really like to understand, how is it possible that we just let this go? How can we just let this go?
I know, right?
I mean, the same thing happened when we had this massive redistribution of wealth in the States. Wall Street failed, full stop. It failed. Greenspan was wrong for 50 years. He said, I was wrong. Okay, well, move on. And then we saw these hundreds of billions of dollars given, like tax money, given to the banks and other investment houses and different companies.
Other companies.
Too big to what a lot of crock. Well, look at this. I'm going to give myself a gigantic bonus. This is the best year we ever had. Look at all this money.
Look at all that money we just got for free. Yeah.
And
what are you going to do with yours? I'm going to buy everything. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. Well, whatever those guys can't. Yeah, they see all these people there that pay taxes. Yeah. We're just going to take all their houses. They can live in the street.
That's right.
I don't get it. I'm really at a loss, Dave. I feel disgusted, and I feel deeply offended. Yeah, go on.
It feels just like, Homer and his toaster, where he goes back in time and beats on a few things and comes back again to see what's changed, and then he does it so much that it's completely different, and he's super wealthy. And he asked Marge, "Oh, pass me a donut." She goes, "What's a donut?" And then he goes back and goes absolutely berserk on everything. and comes back happy that his family is now like the lizard overlords with forked tongues. At some point, Maggie, does if and I'm making a point. If at some point, do you think if time travel and the that paradox, the Mandela effect, if that's been caused by people going backwards in time, just changing little tiny fringe things, to me, it sort of feels like we've just woken up and it's a different world.
I think that's a fair.
It doesn't
statement.
seem. It seems like everything was happily moving along, and then suddenly, it's all different. Now,
So-
I've kept like you, we have kept in touch with the things that are happening in society.
Correct. There are a number of theories around this, and since you brought it up, we might as well spend the last few moments discussing this before we go to the second part of the show. Some people believe that the switching in of the accelerator, the current CERN accelerator, particle accelerator, it was the Large Hadron. It was in fact the switch that caused that, because I strongly believe that we live in a multiverse. It's a multiverse. It's a quantum universe. If you look at the double slit experiment and the probability curve, the decoherence of the wave function and so forth, I think it is clear that there are other realities out there which we simply cannot measure. It's really just a measurement problem here. But they exist. I think they exist just as much as we do, and I think they're unlimited. What we have done, though, with the Large Hadron Collider is maybe weakened the membrane, the fabric, whatever, that keeps those realities separate. And I think that if there is time travel, and there's a lot of talk around the Nazi bell, if you remember that, and time travel that goes back that far even, which may further weaken the overall structure, the overall fabric of our multiverse, if you will. I don't know. I think of it as an energetic kind of network and matrix, if you will. And if you screw around too much with it, I think you can damage it. It's like, you think of a spider's web, everybody. But think of a spider's web that is three-dimensional, and it's not just a spider's web, but it's a spider cube. Think of a spider cube, right? And it's beautiful, and you can play a little bit with it. But if you play too much with it, you break the strings, you break the strands. You break the little, and you can't actually fix it, right? You're gonna have a spider to fix it. And then I think it's a really complex spider web, again, in several dimensions. And we are, I think some of us are potentially playing around with it and not really understanding what it is we're doing, not understanding, what energies we're playing with, because, we're like the monkey at the nuclear launch site. Oh, there's a shiny red button. I wonder if I get a banana if I press this. And the answer is probably no, but you're the monkey and you don't know that. So we do things, and we've always done this. We get new technology, right? We just do it, right? We just do it.
Think about radio.
Should we do anything, dude. Should we do this? Should we do this?
Sure.
Nobody stops to ask that. Not a single person. Let's just do it.
No one's ever done it before. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to push it anyway. That's right.
Yeah, there's a hole in the ground, right? There's a hole in the ground. I'm a monkey. Ooh, I wonder if there's a snake inside that hole. Sticking my arm right in it. There you go. It is really who we are, right? In many ways, because we are children. I come back to it again, Dave. I know it's sort of a segue into the hypothesis, but we are children. We can't be trusted with fire. We can't be trusted. We should not be allowed to run with scissors, Dave. We should not be allowed to run with scissors.
Agree.
All right.
Yeah.
So look, the music is only a few moments away. This is Listener Funded Radio. Donate if you can, please. I believe the archives should be up and running pretty soon as well. Freedom Screen. Yeah. This is so we have Freedom Slips. Is the website, the archives. Spend $5 to subscribe if you can. Donate if you want to. You can buy products too. There's some sponsors, right? You can click through to their sites. This is great. This is listener funded. I hope you like it. I really do. I mean, this not just us. Even though are we the longest now, Dave? What's the wait?
I don't know, but I know the music is running.
And the music is running.
We'll see you after the break. It's only a short break. All right, welcome back. You are with David Mackey on Shiny Side Out for freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button. You'll find that on the website. Or subscribe to the archives for only $5, I think it's US, per month. If you're new to Shiny Side Out, well, welcome aboard. This is the tinfoil hat zone. So keep your arms within the vehicle, turn off your personal reality inverters, and please, no flash photography. Look, we are glad you're on board, and thank you for inviting us into your lives, because that's what this is. It's a personal experience. So follow, subscribe, or otherwise for the appropriate social media platform. We're halfway through show number 410. Pause for Meckie's comment. No. 10 and 400. And we're talking about the hypothesis and the epiphany. Believe it or not, this is part 11. This is the last of this show arc. And we'll be putting in our 2 cents at the end also. Now, we request that you get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website, possibly an EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents on it, as you might hear the late and most respected owner of the station suggest that in the bumpers. Possibly a 75,000 seed pack that you can put in the freezer and use. Keeps for years and years and years and years. But do follow the instructions carefully, and if you're outside of the US, as Meckey and I are, be careful with your customs and your importation laws to see whether you can import the thing that you've suggested you like. I think you can buy a knife. You certainly can't buy guns and import them without a license. You can't bring seeds into this country, so we have to be extremely careful. Not even wood products or anything. So, just respect your laws. So, Meckey, I'm hoping you're back on deck after this short break that we've just had. Thank you very much. One thing I'd like to say before we do that is this is Australia Day. This is the 26th of January here. It's only about 30 degrees Celsius, which is a bit of a break from, the 46s that we've had in Celsius, which is like 112 or something like that, Fahrenheit. However, it's nearly 100% humidity, and it does not matter what you do, where you go, where you stand, shade or shade not. You're just awash with sweat, and it's terrible. Your body can't cool down naturally in that much humidity without drinking beer. Beer seems to be the thing that you drink, certainly in the north of Australia. They have a Darwin stubby, which is like 3 bottles of beer in a single can. Crazy stuff. And no wonder, because they just sweat it straight back out again. Not that I'm drinking beer right now. I have to wait till the show finishes. But getting straight into the show notes, of course, is what we're looking at. And Meckie's going to give me a hoy when he returns. There he is.
Hoy!
Right now. Hoy! Ahoy, hoy!
Hoy, hoy.
Yes. So... that's the second reference, Meckey. We've had a few. Our third, because I said up and atom.
Up and atom, yeah. He's a time traveler,
Yeah.
No, he's Matt Groening is a time traveler.
Yeah,
No doubt about it.
No doubt, absolutely.
Come on the show, Matt. Tell me you're not. Tell me you're not a time traveler. I dare you to lie to me.
He's already been on the show, clearly.
Clearly.
Yes, because he's a time traveler. So when do you want a time machine?
Anytime.
What do we want a time machine? When do we want it? Doesn't matter. Yeah. So, interpretation of quantum mechanics. Meckey, go ahead.
Sure. Decoherence does not claim to provide a mechanism for the actual wave function collapse. It's just a description. Right? It puts forth a reasonable mechanism for the appearance of wave function collapse. Okay, so it doesn't explain why it happens. It just gives you a mechanism of why the wave function collapses, or how the wave function collapses. Mm-hmm. The quantum nature of the system is simply leaked into the environment so that a total superposition of the wave function still exists. but exists, at least for all practical purposes, beyond the realm of measurement. So it's no. This is serious stuff.
I know it's serious, but it's just said in such a way that says we really still don't know.
We have no idea. So it's a measurement problem, like most things, right, in life. That's the measurements. So what we're saying is, and what scientists have been saying, that the wave function, yes, it does decohere, right? It collapses.
That's acknowledged.
To present us with, well, what we call reality, right? And here we are. This is something we experience non-stop at the rate of 1 second per second, right? Into the future. Here we go. But the other realities, the other outcomes, the other points, if you will, on the wave function still exist. We simply cannot measure them. Of course, by definition, the claim that a merged but unmeasurable wave function still exists cannot be proven experimentally. Okay? Decoherence explains why a quantum system begins to obey classical probability rules after interacting with its environment, due to the suppression of the interference terms when applying Born's probability rules to the system. In really broad terms, is if you look at it, it collapses.
That's right.
It's really what it is. Grossly simplified, and I'm sure any quantum physicists out there would say, Mac is a fool, he does not know what he's talking about. I'm not too sure how many are in the mafia, but all I know is that this is the simple, straightforward. I know, right? It is the simple, straightforward explanation. So we need to understand this, okay? The quantum decoherence happens, but scientists believe that the decoherence does not mean the eradication of the other wave function outcomes. Okay?
So they're saying we only see one of them.
We can only measure one of them. Right? Once it's measured, the others are no longer measurable. Dave, tell us about the observer effect.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it, really? In physics, the term observer effect refers to changes that the act of observation will make on a phenomenon being observed. This is often the result of instruments that, by necessity, let's put an extra syllable in there, alter the state of what they measure in some manner. A commonplace example is checking the pressure in an automobile tyre. This is difficult to do without letting out some of the air, and thus changing the pressure. Furthermore, it is not possible to see any object without light hitting the object and causing it to emit light as a reflection. While this may seem negligible, the object still experiences a change. And remember, if something is shown to be green, it's the only light wavelength that was reflected back. If you shine white light on an object and it shows you that it looks green, it's because it absorbed all the other colors. So you actually had to change it, had to absorb something. So this effect can be observed in many domains of physics and can often be reduced to insignificance by using better measurements or instruments or observation techniques. In quantum mechanics, there is a common misconception that it is the mind of the conscious observer that causes the observer effect in quantum processes. It is rooted in a misunderstanding of the quantum wave function and the quantum measurement process. Now, that's not my opinion, because mine differs somewhat.
Correct. Correct.
Ours differ. Yep.
Yeah. So look, and that's right. So in fact, the observer effect is somewhat different to that, and what we're seeing in the doubly slit experiment is not the observer effect. That's not what we're seeing here. What we're seeing is a very different thing. We're seeing quantum decoherence at the point of measurement. It's a very different phenomenon, right? So we shouldn't label it the observer effect, because it's not. The observer effect is you influencing the outcome of an experiment by doing something, right? That's the observer effect. What we see in the quantum wave collapse is not the observer effect, because I believe it would also happen if we made zero changes to to anything. And in some instances, we can measure without actually affecting any of the things that are being measured, except, of course, the outcome is still different. So it is not the observer effect. So we're not actually actively making changes. It is just a measure of, it's a matter of being measured or not measured. That is what the quantum wave collapse is brought down to. So, So then what's the difference between the observer effect and the uncertainty principle? And you ask yourself, why are we talking about this in the first place? Well, we need to talk about all of this. I don't know if you cast your mind quickly back. We spoke about quantum decoherence and a whole bunch of other stuff.
It's only been 10 other
shows. Really necessary. Yeah, we need to do this. Otherwise, I can't explain to you why my epiphany came about. So it's important to understand it from the epiphany's point of view. So let's go to it's good to the what's the difference between the observer effect and the uncertainty principle, right? This is in particle physics, the observer effect in general use refers to any effect caused by the act of the observation. We just discussed this. When Heisenberg came up with the uncertainty principle, although the mathematics of the theory was accurate, his reasoning behind it was not. Heisenberg's idea was the position and velocity, momentum of a particle cannot be measured accurately at the same time, because the very act of measurement of position causes a change in the particle's momentum, because of the interaction between the measuring photon, any detecting particle really, and the particle itself. But it was later found that the uncertainty was in fact not a result of measurement, but an inherent property of the universe. Okay, so uncertainty principle is not related to observer effect. So we explained to you what the observer effect is. It is not the uncertainty principle again. But it was later found that the uncertainty was in fact not a result of measurement, but an inherent property of the universe, i.e., when you take the wave nature of a particle, if the position is well defined, the wavelength or momentum isn't. And if you can measure the wavelength accurately, the position isn't well defined. So with regards to the general use of the term, there's no real connection between the uncertainty principle and the observer effect, the former being a law of the universe, irrespective of measurement. In physics, the term observer effect is more famously used to describe the collapse of a wave function upon the act of measurement, which is a true account of quantum behavior, i.e., you can say the act of measurement has localized the position of the particle, but it's not the observer effect necessarily, because I think it would still be in effect even if the measurement made no impression upon that's what being observed, if you understand my meaning. Even if the act of observation, act of measurement, has no physical or otherwise influence on that's what being measured, the act of measurement itself is enough to bring about the measurement effect and the collapse of the wave function. Okay, let's quickly, this is a fairly recent article, let's quickly go through the double slit experiment again, Dave.
Yeah, sure. And I've got a slide deck for this as well. Do you remember the double slit experiment? It's one of the weirder experiments in modern physics. It cuts to the heart of the weirdness of quantum mechanics. Basically, waves that pass through two narrow parallel slits will form an interference pattern on a screen. This is true for all waves, whether they're light waves, water waves, or sound waves. But light isn't just a wave, it's also a particle called a photon. So, what happens if you shoot a single photon at the double slits? Well, it turns out, even though there's only one photon, it still forms an interference pattern. It's as if the photon travels through both slits simultaneously and interferes with it as a wave function. But wait, it gets even weirder. As an episode of PBS's Space-Time shows, just by observing the double slit experiment, the behavior of the photon changes. The idea behind the double slit experiment is that even if the photons are sent through the slits one at a time, there's still a wave present to produce an interference pattern. The wave is a wave of probability in mathematics because of the experiment being set up so that the scientists don't know which of the two slits any individual photon will pass through. But if they try to find out by setting up detectors in front of each slit to determine which slit the photon really goes through, the interference pattern doesn't show up at all. It reverts to a double slit painted on the back. So no matter what the scientists do, even if they try anything to observe the photons, the interference pattern fails to emerge. That is quantum decoherence, it turns back to a particle pattern, not a wave pattern. Hence my description of what's on the YouTube. A group of scientists tried a variation of the double slit experiment called a delayed choice experiment. The scientists placed a special crystal at each slit. The crystal splits any incoming photons into a pair of identical photons. One photon from this pair should go on to create the standard interference pattern, while the other travels to a detector. Perhaps with this setup, physicists might successfully find a way to observe the logic-defying behavior of photons. But it still doesn't work. And here's the really weird part. It doesn't work regardless of when the detection happens. Even if this second photon is detected after the first photon hits the screen, it still ruins the interference pattern. This means that observing a photon can change events that have already happened. Meki.
Scientists are still unsure how exactly this whole thing works. It's one of the greatest mysteries of quantum mechanics. Perhaps someday someone will finally be able to solve it. I think it speaks to the fundamental nature of our universe. And then we're getting very close to the Epiphany here now. And at the very basic level, our universe is not at all what we think it is. It is not at all commonsensical. Okay, it doesn't make any sense to us, at least in our current frame of mind, with all the things that we have been taught. Let's talk very quickly about quantum superposition, and it's really the final scientific text we're going to share with you here. It's a fundamental principle of quantum mechanics, of course, superposition. It states that, much like waves in classical physics, any two or more quantum states can be added together, superposed. And the result will be another valid quantum state. And conversely, that every quantum state can be represented as the sum of two or more other distinct states. Mathematically, it refers to a property of solutions to the Schrödinger equations. Since the Schrödinger equation is linear, any linear combination of solutions will also be a solution. An example of a physically observable manifestation of superposition is interference peaks from an electron wave in the double slit experiment. Okay, a superposition simply refers to every single possible point
option or variation
the particle could occupy on the wave function. That's it. The superposition just means. But the superposition also implies the particle holds that position simultaneously with all other positions. That's why it's called a superposition.
That's correct. So as an example, it either went through the left slit, the right slit, both slits, or none of them. All of those possibilities are held in superposition.
Yeah, and every possibility in between, and that's what it is. It's just a superposition. Just think of it as the wave function. That's all it is. And when we talk about decoherence, we're talking about the decoherence of the superposition or the wave function, which then collapses into the one observed position, which is wherever it happens to be on the screen. It's somewhere on the screen, but it's a distinct impression rather than interference or wave pattern. Okay, now the Epiphany. The Epiphany, where we shared the
long-awaited Epiphany.
The long-awaited Epiphany. Because we thought about this. You know, we thought about it, and I was thinking about this, and because I believe we're in a black iron prison. I believe this reality is not where we should be. I believe this reality, in many ways, in every way, in fact, is here to imprison us, to limit us, to make sure that we stay put. We're born into it again through reincarnation. And no, I don't think reincarnation is here to teach us anything. I think that's a great deception. I think our key objective must be to escape this place. Escape, we've discussed with you guys at length. Not easy, but possible. Some people that have escaped, I think, have come back to help us. Very tough, amazing people if they do that, right? And all the religious texts, all the philosophers come to similar conclusions. You can talk to all of them. And they all feel that this world is but an illusion, performance, a cave, shadows on a cave wall, whatever you want to call it. So this reality, I think, is dependent on the number of people actively believing in it. Okay, this reality. Sentient minds, I think, is key here. We're here to ensure the continued existence of this reality. I think that's why we're here. I think we're caught in the cycle of reincarnation, so to make sure that there are always sentient minds in this reality to ensure it continues to exist. Why? I have no idea. To put it simply, I propose that we, sentient beings, not just human beings, are here in order to ensure there is quantum decoherence. We are here to stabilize or maybe even create and sustain this reality, hidden in plain sight. And these are like ancient. This is from the Masons and the text they added to the $1 bill. There's ordo ab chaos and ex or e pluribus unum, ex pluribus unum. So ordo ab chaos means order out of chaos.
Yes, order in chaos. Yep.
And e pluribus unum means out of many one. Now this actually beautifully is describing in very simple sense.
Wow, hang on, my mind's blowing.
Boom! Quantum decoherence. That's exactly what it is.
That's right.
Okay?
That
out
is
of
describing
many
that perfectly.
And so they knew this. And so this knowledge is not new. I'm not the first person to think this. Not at all. I mean, Dave is not the first person to think this. But we are among the few that are putting it all together for you. And I'm not part of a secret society, not one that forbids me to talk about it at least. But for the last 40 years, I guess, I've been looking at the world through my eyes, which are somewhat different from other people's eyes, because just the way I am, the way I was brought up, my interests, and you can piece it together for yourselves. I mean, if you look around the world and nothing bothers you and you think everything is okay and there are no mysteries and you shouldn't ask any questions, go back drinking your Kool-Aid. That's cool. That's all right. You're exactly who they want to.
All of the Kool-Aid.
All the Kool-Aid. You're exactly the kind of being that they want you to be. Good for you. I mean, do what you need to do. I do believe, however, and we discussed this, that there is a potential for a spontaneous ascension. The reality and matrix can be influenced that way. If there are enough of us here, I think if there are enough of us here, there's something that can spontaneously happen, and we all ascend at the same time. Okay, and perhaps some people call it the rapture. You can call it whatever you want. What was our term again? Our term was the Epiphany, not the Epiphany. No, the awareness cascade.
Awareness cascade.
Okay, and I think once we hit a certain critical number, and I don't know if you got the calculations right. We might not. We think the number might be around 7.6 billion, but it could be wrong. But in order for us not to reach that number, extinction level events had to happen that reduce our numbers, and they have happened in the past quite often.
Well, okay? we've got another one that's leering in the background right now.
Yeah.
We talked at the top of the hour.
Yeah, quite. I mean, if you look at the history of this world, okay, the perceived history. I mean, this world is real enough for us. Like, how can I put this best? If you were in a computer simulation and your mind believed that a cigarette was put out on your hand, a burning cigarette was put out on your hand, just in your mind, not in reality, but it's a simulation. Your body would produce a burn on your hand. If you're hypnotized and the hypnotist tells you, you now have a burn on your hand, a burn will appear. They're called stigmata, spontaneous wounds that appear in your body, just because your body thinks you should have them. So what I mean by that is, yes, this might not be the real reality and not our true home. Whatever happens here is very real, though, still, to our physical bodies that inhabit this reality, which are not our real bodies. Okay, I believe we are multidimensional beings which are press-ganged into like a four-dimensional linear thinking kind of body, which limits us no end. But that's where we are nonetheless. So everything that happens here is real enough, and you feel it and you experience it. It forms part of who you are. Even if we escape this prison, you will still, in my opinion, retain a memory of the things that happened to you here. Right? That's why it's important, I think, for us to get out of here, because I think we are being damaged by being here. Okay? Damaged through all the negative experiences, because this is not who we are. I don't think this is what we should experience. But I mean, it's really amazing when you think about ordo ab chaos and ex pluribus unum, Dave. If you look at it from that point of view, that angle, all of a sudden you go, hang on, that explains quantum incoherence quite nicely.
Oh, in fact, indeed, it describes it precisely is what it does. Nicely is one thing, but describing it and waiting for the technology to catch up so that phrase works is something else.
I know, right?
So this is knowledge. Exactly, it's the helicopter in the lintel, Mackie. It is. We didn't know if a helicopter existed until we made one, and then we reviewed that and saw that that's exactly what that thing was. You know, Mackie, I've just put the world population clock up, and it's at 7.76 billion. And I have to say that if we lost 100 million or 200 million, that would knock us back down again.
So that's actually the number, isn't it?
We're right around.
We're at 7.778 billion.
That's right. So could you imagine if we got knocked again, and how many was lost in the Spanish flu, right?
20 million. That's right. Oh, actually, no, worldwide. No, more. It was more than World War One.
That's right.
I can't. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Millions and millions, tens of millions.
Infected 500 million people around the world is what that the Spanish flu, and that was H1N1.
Yes.
And you have to think just how bad could this be, right? We talked about the pandemic, and we've been looking. It's you know what, Mickey? That was 1918. This is 2020. It's 102 years later. And we've been looking for this one and seeing when it was going to emerge. You know, is this it? We don't know. Right?
It might be. I mean, the next nexus point would be at 12 billion. Okay, if there was another nexus point.
That's right.
But we were meant to hit 7.778 billion in 2020. Those are the calculations. We used look, the formula is very simple. Okay, I just used the Fibonacci sequence. Mm-hmm. And I started with a count of 1. That's all I did. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you know, and then we just lined up population numbers. So step 48 was 2.9 billion. Step 49 was 4.8 billion. Step 50 was 7.78 billion in those years. So those steps coincide with 1960, 1985, and 2020.
Isn't that extraordinary, people? Isn't that? Does that blow your mind?
And again, the math. I mean, this is just you can call it inspiration, but this was complete. I mean, I have nothing to fall back on here and say this is why it is. This is why I think it is right. The only thing I can say to you is that the Fibonacci sequence seems to be all pervasive in our universe. It seems to be a number sequence that is underlying all things, not just living things, but all things. The spiral formations of galaxies in the Fibonacci sequence. Pine cones, that's a living thing though, but yeah, you're right. But even inanimate objects seem to can we say they're inanimate? I mean, maybe not. But for me, that's probably the fingerprint of maybe one of the programmers for this reality. And again, it's real enough. I mean, whatever happens here happens. It's a real thing. The thing is this though, we need to maybe the trick here is, and I'm still trying to figure out why it is necessary for us to be here. Why do we have to make sure that this reality of all of them needs to stay and has existence where they all do? But we are here, point. I think, to make sure. I think it does exist, and maybe there's certain laws governing all of this that I'm not aware of. And the thing is this: in your dream state, everything makes sense. Mm-hmm. You wake up, nothing makes sense that you dreamt. I mean, it's complete nonsense. But I believe that your faculties are much more unlimited and less restricted in your dream state. You're no longer bound by this physical shell that you carry around. You're free. Your mind is free to explore the multiverse as you dream, and things make sense. Once you wake up, it doesn't make sense. So this limitation is here, only here. We can escape. We can escape in our dreams. And the funny thing is this: it is the pineal gland, it seems, that allows us the connection to the higher realities that are true home, our true heaven, if you will. And it is that's being attacked. It's the pineal gland, Dave, that's being attacked, and made to calcify prematurely by having fluoride in the water. See, this is insane, guys. But all of these things, once you look at it, they all sort of click together. We're going to talk about. We've talked about this. You can bring Bigfoot into this. We can, skinwalkers, UFO phenomena, anything you want. You can talk about ancient civilizations that went before us, even interference into our reality, because this has been going on for an immeasurably long time. This is not yesterday, right? But as far as this world is concerned, this is going to be going on for millions, maybe tens of millions of years. Okay, we've been caught here, and maybe new souls or new entities are being caught in this all the time. Maybe this is like a whirlpool. Maybe it's like an eddy, Dave. I don't know. Maybe it's like some kind of honey trap where we get sucked into on a vastly multi-dimensional cosmic scale that we can't really.
If
right?
you don't know what a honey trap is, it's in tech terms, it's a honeypot or honey trap is a thing that's so easily hackable and detectable that you'll take people there first, and then you can detect that they're there. If this is the honeypot, if we think we're working it out, only to discover we wake up yet inside another dream. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe exactly. That's what's going on. Meki, if you had to control a society, right, from 80 years ago, you would put everything in place that we currently have.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I'm 100%. Saying?
Oh, look, this is every autocrat's wet dream. Pardon my French. This is, I mean, if you read the novels, 1984, A Brave New World, there are others as well, right? What the future, what was it? What the future holds and what the future may bring. There's several stories written in the 19th century and the early 20th century that deeply delve into what would happen in the future. And 1984 puts it very nicely. The future of the human race is a boot stamping on a face forever. And yeah, that's where we are. And all of these things that have happened. Through technology, through sociological, political engineering, economic engineering, other things as well. Certainly, entertainment played a huge part. Diet as well. We are now living in a crossbreed world of 1984 and a Brave New World. And if you say that's crazy, making a Brave New World, they're all drug addicts and they're taking soma. And they're not really living. And in 1984, everybody's observed all the time. Nobody's really free. And if you're still talking at this point, you have to take a step back. Then I urge you to look around. No, we're not oppressed overtly all the time, because that doesn't work. What you want is a panopticon, right? You want a self-managed prison, a self-guarded prison. That's what you want.
Self-regulated.
You don't. Yeah. Because if you don't know you're in prison, Dave, why would you ever escape? Why would you escape?
That's right. You don't have the motive to escape if you don't think you're in one, but then you are in one because you're being self-regulated, self-monitored.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I know, right?
And we've only ourselves to thank for all of this because we let it happen.
Yep.
We let ourselves be convinced that we're weak and scared, and there's bad people out there we need to be protected from. We require our betters. Yeah, make no mistake. We require our betters to look after us, like any good shepherd would.
Yes.
True. For thousands of years, we have been kept dumb and dumber through the agents of religion, through the agents of. See, you know how monarchy came about by the biggest, strongest dude or woman, occasionally, just taking power. I'm the biggest, baddest dude. Yep. I'm in charge now. You don't like it? I'll chop your head off. Okay? The problem with that is that'll last only so long. If you want to build a dynasty, right? If you want your children to be in the same position as you, which is, even if you're the worst despot on the planet, you still want your children to have it good.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What you do is this. You call on God. All monarchies, all royal houses, all king and queen lines, they are all claiming to be installed, right, by a higher power. It is through God they rule. And that's why the the monarchies and the empires of the world were always working hand in hand with the religions of the time. It's no different today. It is no different today. The Japanese, in fact, the Japanese are probably the purest form of that, where the emperor is in fact the head of the Zen religion. Okay, he's a personified god.
Mm-hmm.
The emperor of Japan is a god living on Earth. It's great. That's great. You've got the ultimate authority. And the thing is this, because ignorant people, well, I don't want to say no, that's not fair. I shouldn't say not ignorant. Misinformed people generally fear the invisible spaghetti monsters in the sky. It's cool, right? I get it. I understand it because you just don't know. I mean, a god, a number of gods, but there's something to be feared because we just don't know, and certainly death is uncertain, all that stuff. So what do? You then look to God or gods to help you or save you or for authority. And if someone tells you, someone in power, in fact, oh no, God told me to be here, and then the heads of the church also go, yeah, God wants him to be king. They go, oh, okay, all right. That's why it was such a huge thing when the people rose up in France in 1789 and beheaded their king and queen. It was mind-blowing because this is it. We've had it, right? And still politicians listen to your assemblies. I don't care where you are. A Muslim or Christian, or listen to how your political assemblies open. How do they open? Is there prayer? Just listen to it. I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 times there will be some kind of prayer opening up the political proceedings, because they also, by extension, are claiming a divine installment to some extent. Okay, now not like kings and queens, did in olden times directly. Okay, God directly ordained him to be king and her to be queen directly, or the emperor. This is more, I guess the people have voted for you, but it was God's will that we are here, and some of these people actually believe that. So this is really where we are. We need to break free of that mindset, because it's wrong. That just all we have is people, right? We have no evidence for anything else. We have evidence for mysterious things, absolutely. We've got evidence for what I guess we'd like to call the supernatural, absolutely. But there's more than one explanation. And this is really one thing that bothers me very much, Dave. And since this is the end of the hypothesis show cycle, this is what bothers me. I don't care what anyone believes. Anyone is welcome to believe in a spaghetti monster in the sky, or Jehovah, or Allah, or well, you can't really believe in Buddha. You just follow his teachings. You can do whatever you like. Doesn't make an iota of a difference to me. But please understand what it is that you believe. Okay, understand what it is you believe. Do not have a discussion with someone if you don't know. If you just say, I'm this and that, and what you believe is wrong. Based on what? See, this is my problem with Richard Dawkins as well. Right? I'm an atheist, he says. Okay, that's cool. You don't have to be. You don't have to be believing in God or anything. But he is so fanatically atheist that nothing can stand in the way of his atheism. There is no God. Okay, that takes as much belief as the belief in a God.
That's right.
Because there's just too much stuff we don't know. Now, if you say to yourself, oh, science will explain everything one day. Well, maybe, but not right now. So you have to believe, because you don't know. You don't know. No one knows. That's why I'm an agnostic. I don't know. I'm honest about it. I have no idea. Right? Is this right? Maybe. Is that right? Maybe. I have no evidence. I have zero evidence, and I have no belief. Do you know what I mean? Right?
Oh, I know what you mean.
The funny thing is this, though. If we're living in a quantum universe, everybody is right, because every reality is true somewhere. There's no wrong. There's no wrong. If this is a true multiverse, right? A true multiverse, there cannot be a wrong. Impossible. Because everything somewhere is true. That's wonderful. So you can have as many arguments. You can have all the trolling you want. Troll away, right? You're right. Somewhere you're right. right? Are you right here? I don't know. Maybe you're not right. Maybe you're right. All I know is this. We need to understand what it is we believe. And we have to understand how we got to the point. You have to understand the history of your religion, the history of your philosophy, the history of your moral understanding, your ethics, all of that. If you don't understand it, you're just a tourist, okay? You have, like what Dave calls, an inherited belief. I love that term, inherited belief. It means nothing. It's like inherited wealth. You never worked for it. You didn't have to, lift a finger. It's the same with this. You didn't do any of the hard mental work. You didn't sit there, and think about it. Oh, well, is this right? Is this true? What's for me? What's for... This is really, it's really nonsensical to argue it. And in fact, you can't argue it if you don't know what it is. You must inform yourself. You must inform yourself, Dave.
Yeah.
I find it highly offensive when people just state things. It's like, debunkers. My favorite people on the planet. Armchair debunkers. Everybody knows. Common sense tells us, no, stop. Common sense doesn't tell us anything because we haven't encountered this before. Mm-hmm. So there are these funny objects that completely inexplicable.
Out of place artifacts.
Out of place artifacts. Or even explainable artifacts like the pyramids or the Baalbek stones or whatever. You look at them and you go, wow, there they are.
Plain sight, there they are.
Yeah, clearly, there they are, right? They're there. That's where they are. Look, there they are. But how? And in fact, not just how. More important, because the how is really, but it doesn't really matter because it was done. So the how would be nice to know, but it was done, so we don't really have to worry too much about the how. The more important is the why. Why did it happen? Clearly was some religious thing. Whenever we don't know, scientists or archaeologists or historians, religious artifact. Yep. Göbekli Tepe. Yep. Religious. Yep. Pyramids. Oh yeah, they loved the emperor. I remember Zahi Hawass. He was the head of the Egyptology Institute in Egypt, in fact. And he said, always love that built the pyramids. The people loved the pharaoh so much they built him the pyramids. No, I'm sorry.
Did you know, Mickey, I watched the documentary this week, which was quite certain that the Egyptians inherited, this is the current thinking still, which is good. It's now emerging that this was our belief anyway, that the Egyptians inherited the site and started drawing things on it to own it. And one of those was that large granite sarcophagus, the black one with the shiny sides and
shiny inside
and really rough inside. That's right. But it was made so perfectly, but the engraving on it is so terrible. It doesn't match the style that it matches from its creation. So it's clearly been done at a completely different time. This guy has cited hundreds of examples of this all around Egypt, and everyone says, well, the pharaoh decided to tag it.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
The earliest form of graffiti. It's a graffito.
That's right. But he's saying, well, if the experts are saying that the pharaoh just tagged this, maybe they were already here. Maybe they weren't like it's been proposed that they made it, because he said, they've got drill holes, they've got large circular saw, maybe 8-meter diameter. It's been calculated that the circular saws cut some of the rocks, some of the stone, and just crazy when you start to work out that they must have had machinery. But of course, the ancient Egyptians didn't have any machinery, so this must have been pre-Ice Age. This must have been in a former time when there was a high society on the planet, which is one of the other things that we've spoken about with, the Anunnaki coming down and doing their thing with us. There must have been a time at which we or someone was capable of creating these massive things that are remnants now, where people have inherited them and just claimed them as theirs. Jupiter Temple, Mickey, is your favourite, and mine is the lintel from the Abydos Temple. These things are here. We need to admit that they're there. But you know what? I'm going to take it back to the armchair debunker. Oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Everybody knows.
based on me sitting in this chair for hours and hours at a time.
That's
Hey!
right, just debunking everybody everywhere. And what also there was this one guy that was debunking everything and found that he was the person updating the Wikipedia. Have you ever tried to update Wikipedia, Mackie?
I have, but they didn't accept my.
How did that go? Yeah.
It didn't go well.
Even when I tried to update my ex-wife's name because it was written incorrectly, they wouldn't allow me to be a knowledgeable person enabled to make that. I wasn't qualified to make that call. What? But I married her, right? I was divorced her, but I married her. I think I know how she spelt her name, and your name's incorrect. How is someone going to find her? Oh, but I said, but this is the People's Dictionary, right? We all meant to contribute, and I fell out of favour with Wikipedia pretty quickly, since it isn't, and they won't accept any new information, and so how can it be? It's just the same as that dodgy hit a nerve, just the same as that dodgy textbook that I learnt that was reprinted in something like 1948 or 1952 that I learnt in high school in the 80s. It was reprinted. It wasn't even updated. There was no new information in there from its original published date. Nothing new since then, which meant as time's moved on, that now has fallen more out and out of date. Now, remember, Mackie, you say this and we say this, the winners write history.
Of course.
And the wealthy, do they decide what the rules of the game are?
Of course. That's the world we inherit. Maybe it is that simple. I don't know. I don't know. It's a mystery. It's a conundrum to me. Because the thing is this: I believe that the people in charge here are just as much in prison as we are, the elite, right? They're just institutionalized. They can't. They're horrified of getting out. Think about it this: like, let's say you're in prison, but you know you're in prison. Like, we don't know we're in prison because we forget every time we die. We forget what happened, right? They don't, or they live forever, or whatever the case may be. But they don't. They know, and they've been here so long. They're terrified, I would imagine, to get out, because even us in our short lives here that we have, as we go from life to life, if we're in prison for 20, 30, 40 years, after that long incarceration, we are unfit to exist outside the prison, and even in our context here. And imagine these entities, these like us, they're like us, except they remember shit. They've been here, and from the beginning, and they remember it, and they've been imprisoned for so long that they can no longer live, and they're actively working on us not remembering. They're actively working on us, being here ignorant and fulfilling the every whim. It's like in the movie The Matrix. It's really interesting. The Merovingian, I think it was the second Matrix movie. He had survived several other instances of the earlier matrices, when they had like monsters and vampires and all that. And he had survived, and he was completely aware where he was because he was a program. But he loved it, and he took advantage of it, and he did whatever he could to maintain a status quo and exist within that context.
And that's that dynastical approach, Mackie.
Yeah, completely. And why not? I mean, if this is the best you can imagine, then this is it. Maybe it'd be terrifying to go out there and explore your true potential. Me, I can't wait. I'd love to just go and live in the real world, as it were, right? In the world that doesn't have the limitations of time and linearity and forward motion and 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions even, right? It is unnatural. It feels unnatural to me in many ways, and it's really hard to put into words, to explain just how hemmed in one feels.
I don't know, right? Blah blah blah.
That's it, right? It's I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah. So look, if you could live forever, and you separate yourself from society so no one sees you not age, and if you could live forever and have enough wealth because you've been here quite a long time, you could separate yourself entirely from society, Meki, as we've formally given example to this. And when could you go out that was safe? Probably at night, if you really wanted to go outside. Otherwise, your rickets are going to give you a problem because you won't have seen daylight for years. And that's why you make large courtyards with big fences around. And there's, think about all of those castles and how that might value the ability to be able to live in society. You have helpers that can go to the market and get all those things you need, all those things, and they're trustworthy people. But you see generations of them come and go because you live forever, right? Think about 100%. How they would want to maintain their status quo. Now, I know we've done shows on this, and I think it's really important for us to remember all of these points. This is the epiphany and the hypothesis. This is the wrap-up, Meki, that I'm going to hand to you. 3 minutes. What on earth do we do?
What do we do? Well, be informed. Live in this life, but don't be a couch potato. Don't be an armchair debunker. If you have an ounce of curiosity within you, look at the things that don't have ready explanations. It's nice to be safe in inherited beliefs and in a castle of knowledge you've built around yourself. It's safe. It's good, and you like it. I get it. All right, but put yourself out in the zone that is less comfortable. Be uncomfortable. Question. Ask yourself, well, is everything I believe true? Can it be true? Well, if I believe it, then it should be the truth, but why doesn't everybody believe it then? What they believe, is that true? Or is it not? And how could I possibly ever prove it? Well, the answer is you can't, right? So at the very least, you have to accept it. You have to be tolerant. And we could make this reality into something better than what it is, but we've chosen not to, right? Every moment is a choice, guys. I mean, Dave, this is really astounding. If you look around, I mean, look at the politicians and the rich people, especially, right? It's I mean, the Gina Reinhardts of the world. I mean, it makes me vomit to think how they live their life and how we have to pay for it, right? Yeah. It's the Roman Empire. We're living in the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire could only do what it did because the rest of the world or the Roman Empire was paying for it. So Rome was living a good life, but only because the rest of the world was paying for it. It's the same today. We, the privileged, and I mean, we in the West generally are only living the life we're living because we can live off the back of everybody else.
At the detriment of the others. That's right.
100%.
Yeah, we apparently the world we have now. Not everyone can be on equal status.
No. But they could. We could.
We could.
If we wanted to.
But the rules that we've been given to live within and the society we've created and we don't fight against. I'm not saying I'm up for revolution, but, it's the Rome. It's the pre-France... what was the thing that happened in France again?
The revolution.
The revolution. It's the pre-revolution France that we live in.
It's a revolution of the mind. That's
right.
That's all it takes. It's just we don't need violence. No. We just need a revolution of the mind. We all have to we have to grow up. We have to become adults and act like adults. No, forget adults. We need to act like responsible sentient beings.
You tell
sentient
us,
beings that. I know, right?
Does that help?
We need to just do the right thing, right? It is that simple. Do the right thing. I think the music should be starting any moment.
Second. All right. So, hey, Jer Bear has a wonderful show coming up after us, as he always does, and brings you to Dawn. That's what he does. Oh, Dawn, I miss you. I'll see you in the morning. Hey, this has been show 410 for Shiny Side Out. Next week we begin a new show cycle, a new show arc, and we'll see you then. I'm still surprised that we're here. It'll be soon coming up to the 9th year, and we enjoy your input. Don't forget to email us or message us on any of the social platforms. Catch us anywhere you can, and we'll say hello. Take care, everyone.
Peace.
Peace to you, and peace to everybody. Take care.